Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to the Wednesday night edition of the program. Our phone number, if you want to join us on our late night national town hall conversation, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. And we're scheduled to have a really interesting conversation in a little bit with some legendary music people. I'll leave that there. And we're also going to have some really interesting discussion on, of course, politics, the news of the day, all of the interesting things we talk about here. Your calls and more are coming up in the third hour and, throughout the show in about 35 minutes. But right now, I want you to hear a little bit of what's going on because big story today, this guy, John Kelly, four-star general, served in the White House with President Trump. They left off on a bad foot, and he's been out there bad-mouthing El Trompito, Donaldus Magnus, the 45th president of these United States, just bad-mouthing him, saying he's a fascist, got all the Democrats weighing in, he's a fascist. It's sad to see that this is the strategy that they've chosen in order to try and stop him. Not saying, his policies are bad or your life wasn't better with Donald Trump. No, he's a bad person. He's a fascist. He's a threat to democracy. Pick us even though things suck with us because he's a bad person. I mean, their logic is just so weak. But this is where we are. Now, before I get into the General Kelly stuff, I want to get into some of the que mala eres stuff. That's right, que mala eres, which means how bad you are in Spanish. Vice President Kamala Harris doing the interview that she took all day off yesterday to prepare for. Now, you would think if you're a high-level politician like the Vice President of the United States, you wouldn't need an entire day to prep for an interview with CNN when you're a Democrat. Absolutely not, right? Maybe if it was a debate, but no. She needed all day to prep for that. And her performance, well, it was typical, right? As per usual, it was your typical que mala eres type of performance. But good old Harris, she had a couple of things here. Let me scroll to the one I want. Let me see. 20. What numbers, Count Delacula? 21 through 24. Okay, let's take a look at this. So we're talking about fascism, and she says, yes, she believes that Trump is a fascist. Listen to this.
You've quoted General Milley calling Donald Trump a fascist. You yourself have not used that word to describe him. Let me ask you tonight. Do you think Donald Trump is a fascist?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. And I also believe that the people who know him best on this subject should be trusted. Again, look at their careers. These are not people, with the exception, I think, of only Mike Pence. These were not politicians. These are career people who have served in the highest roles in national security, who have served as generals in our military, who are highly respected, talking about the person who would be commander-in-chief, not to mention what we know and what they've told us about how he talks about the military, servicemen and women, referring to them as suckers and losers.
And there it is, suckers and losers. That's what they wanted to do. They want you to believe that Trump hates the military, that Trump thinks they're all suckers and losers because he had disdain for Senator John McCain. That's it. That's the only service member I've ever heard him talk about that he disparaged. Kind of like when Megyn Kelly, who's terrific, by the way, Megyn Kelly said, you've made disparaging comments about women. He said, nope, only Rosie O'Donnell. Not only was it funny, but it was accurate, right? There's a select few women that he's decided to take to task. But by and large, he's not making these statements across the board against women. But more specifically, I want to talk about this because I think there's a lot of people. I'm going to say a lot. Maybe it's not a lot. Maybe it's a little bit. But either way, I'm going to say I think it's reasonable for people who are not avid followers of the daily political news of the day to hear the idea that a former White House chief of staff, a former four-star general that was appointed and hired and worked for Donald Trump in the White House during his term as president, saying something critical about him, that would be a big story if it were the other way around, right? If somebody that worked for Barack Obama or Joe Biden were to, one of their chiefs of staff in the White House, a four-star general, were to turn around and say, I think Barack Obama is a communist. I think he's a fascist. I think Joe Biden is, whatever the critique is. I know that I would stop and listen to that, right? So I think you have to stop and listen to General Pendejo. Now, do I believe this General Pendejo? No, I don't. Why? Because it's clear to me that this is sour grapes. Clear to me that he's just trying to stop and derail Trump. Now, the question is it just because he's a hater and he's got sour grapes? Is that the only reason? I'm going to venture to say no, and I'll explain why. On a number of occasions when I've interviewed generals on this program, I always, kind of ask them, what it's like. We've talked about how they navigate the political nuances of being a general, right? Being a military man, but in effect, you're a bureaucrat. And it takes a special set of skills in order to do this work effectively, right? Colin Powell was a decorated general, right? He had all his accolades. However, he was a politician. He needed to be. And so many of them are able to be both. And this man is no different, General Kelly. You don't become White House Chief of Staff if you don't have a firm grasp on politics. So when Kamala Harris says these are career people, they're not politicians, lies. No, these are politicians. Very politically astute people. Now, I say it's worthy of paying attention to. Sure, you pay attention. You take the allegations seriously, you consider it, and then you move on saying, no, that's debunked, right? And the reason I think it's debunked is because Kelly, like so many others, really did get sour grapes. And the reason that they do, and the reason that they come at Trump the way they do, is because Trump wanted to do things differently, and he did them differently. And he had the power of the purse, not Congress, but his own purse, and Congress when he did have it, and the power of the presidency and the power of social media. And I mean, in so many ways, Trump has access to so many different things. And this is why I think he didn't play the game in Washington the way they expected him to. When you have people that are career generals, they only know Washington that one way, the bureaucrat way. So it makes sense to me that you're going to have some of these clashes. And this is why they're coming after him. This is why they dislike him. Not because of anything else, right? Not because he's actually a fascist. Not because he wants an army like the one Hitler had. Not because he thinks that we can take a black Sharpie and recreate the hurricane map or whatever else they want to say to try and ridicule the guy. Bottom line is, Trump was president. Trump did things differently than they would have liked and preferred. And for that, they're going to try and say that he's not able to serve as president, or he shouldn't be given consideration. And I think that's the furthest thing from the truth. But I wanted to lay out my thoughts as clearly and concisely as I could. Now, if anybody listening here is a fan of Lynyrd Skynyrd, we might have something for you on the way back. I think in my ear I'm hearing that we're going to speak momentarily with someone you might be familiar with, Johnny Van Zant, the lead vocalist for the legendary Southern rock band Lynyrd Skynyrd, is going to be joining us. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Times like these I pray, my Lord, calm my fears with your love. Tell me we can overcome. Through Jesus Christ our Father, Son. I lose faith and I get scared and it gets hard to breathe. Yeah, it hurts when peace on earth seems so out of reach. I speak his name, he is always there. Sing it out, sing it loud, whisper like a prayer. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. All right, that's a fantastic tune. And you might recognize the voice, of course. This is a brand new song from Southern rock icons Van Zant. They've reunited and returned to the studio for what's going to be their first new album in nearly 2 decades. Now, the brothers have been around for a long time. This is a musical dynasty built on family. And, you know, on this program, that's what we like to talk about is family. So I want to welcome Johnny Van Zant to the program. Welcome, sir.
Hey, how are you? Good evening.
Good evening, brother. God bless you. Great to hear from you. Great track right there. I love the way it sounds. And I want to, you know, for those who are listening who may not be familiar with Lynyrd Skynyrd or 38 Special or your brother's work, tell us a little bit about, you know, your come up and how you guys got to where you are and this reunited album that you've got coming out.
Well, you know, hey, it started many, many years ago. Our dad was a truck driver, and he used to take us on the truck, and we would sing old country songs, and, you know, it kind of evolved from there. And back then, we didn't have, 600 channels on TV, so we we had the Ed Sullivan Show and Hee Haw, and we started listening to music way back when, and hey, our families. I always kind of say that we're kind of like a family of carpenters or doctors or lawyers or whatever, you know what I mean? Each one of us kind of came into our own and playing music as we grew, and thank God for it, and it's been a wonderful ride. And now we have this new record out, which is our first gospel album, which has been on our bucket list for many, many years. And nice. Really, we started writing most of this stuff during the shutdown with COVID, and that was a terrible time for the world, but it also inspired us to try to do something good for the world, and that was to spread Jesus' name. And we've always had, hey, let's be honest, we, we're all sinners, but, hey, we've been us Van Zant's true believers in Jesus Christ for our whole life. So this has been an amazing ride so far, and I appreciate you having us on the show tonight and spreading the word.
Oh, amen to that, brother. Now, Johnny Van Zant, you're lead singer with Lynyrd Skynyrd, Hall of Fame rock band. Your brother's the co-founder of 38 Special. Your late brother was the lead singer before you. You guys have been very, very busy. What does your tour schedule look like? How many shows a year are you doing?
We do quite less than what we used to do. We used to go out for many, many months at a time. But, hey, I have kids now and grandkids and home life. So we do probably maybe 70 shows a year, 70 to 80 shows a year. It's nothing like we used to in the old days. But, you know what? We love our fans. We love getting out there and playing. And, it's always good every year. We've already got shows on the book for next year because that's the way it works, with bands. You haven't finished the year and then out, and then you start booking for the next year.
It's good work when you can get it, right? Now, Johnny Van Zant, I want to get an idea of what inspired you guys. And I know you said it was a bucket list item, but let's talk about what inspired you to do this Christian themed gospel album. Was it something that the fans have been asking for? Something that you guys had on the bucket list, obviously. But why was now the right time?
Well, you mentioned about it's been quite a while since me and my brother did a record, and we had done we've done rock and roll our whole life, and then one of the other things that we grew up on country music. I mentioned Hee Haw. We did a couple of records that were country, and one of them was named Get Right With the Man. So we were leaning in that way back then, and it was a very successful record for us. And we really feel like, our fans are God-fearing, hard-working people, and we just, it's something that's been on our hearts, and I think now more than ever we need to lean on the cross, and it sure has been a great ride because, we have 3 songs that are streaming, and one of them's called Jesus Christ, and heavier one actually, but it's about the crucifixion and of Christ and his, coming back alive and proving to the world, that he's alive. And then the second one is called There You Are. And in your times of dark times, look to Jesus, and, hey, he will appear to you, one way or the other. And then the last one here that we have out is called Speak His Name. And my preacher always tells me, says, hey, when you're down and out and something's going wrong, just say Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. And it sure works for me.
Yeah, there's power in the name for sure. Folks, we're on with Johnny Van Zant, lead singer for Lynyrd Skynyrd. He's got a brand new album with his brother, who's the lead singer on 38 Special. And this is their new album, first one in 20 years. And I think it's the track I heard was great. I want to play a little bit of the other one straight ahead. We're going to play that one as well. And I'm going to tease something, but you don't have to answer this question yet. But you mentioned something about, at one point, the devil being your best friend. And I can imagine, tour life and, rock and roll, kind of goes hand in hand sometimes. So I want to hear a little bit about the story behind that quote and a little bit more. And I'm going to invite some of the callers, the listeners, to call into the program. If you want to join the conversation with Johnny Van Zant from Lynyrd Skynyrd and his new album with his brother, give us a call. 833-482-5337 is the phone number, 833-4-VALDEZ. And we're coming back to discuss this new album, the new gospel album, coming on November 22nd via Frontier Music. So don't go anywhere, folks. We're coming right back with Johnny Van Zant and me, Rich Valdez. Don't go anywhere.
I want to listen to you, Rich, all the time.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
You hung him up on the cross, and held him by his hands and feet, the blood he lost. They beat him till there was no skin, crucified an innocent man. Yelled, our Father, they don't know what they do. There were tears running down his face.
All right, amigos, welcome back. Again, you're listening to Johnny Van Zant from Lynyrd Skynyrd, and this is his new project with his brother, a gospel album that they've put out. And let me tell you, this stuff is fantastic. What I've heard, I like. I'm definitely downloading this stuff. And Johnny, part of what inspires me about this particular album is this commitment that you have to Jesus, and I think that's fantastic. And as I mentioned right before we took the break, there was a quote I'm reading here, you saying, "I'll be honest with you, the devil was my best friend at one time." Tell us more about that.
Well, I wasn't the best a person, Rich.
Neither was I, right?
Yeah, in my earlier days, I was a wild maniac, and heck, I got up in the morning to drink just to feel better, And I'll be very, very honest with you, there wasn't too much I didn't try in my younger days. And I really got sick of being sick and tired, and I started going back to the Bible and reading and trying to be a better person. And, when you look at your kids and you feel like you're harming them from what you do, you got to make a decision in your life. And so I made the decision. I kind of look at the crosses that it goes straight up and down, and then it goes to the left, and that's what I call it, a cross, and to the right. And I said, you know what, I think I'm going to try to go as just as straight as I can. Now, in saying that, hey, I'm still a sinner.
Yeah, me too.
We all are. We sin every day. The only perfect person was Jesus Christ that walked this earth. And but you know what? I love spreading the word, and from putting out this record, there's been so many people commenting, and other people I think need him in their life nowadays. And again, I'm not a preacher by no means, but I'm a true believer, my brother too. And again, it goes back to my mom and dad and the way we were raised. And my mom used to say, I raised you boys better than that.
That's great. Gotta love that. So, Johnny Van Zant, I love the candor and the honesty here. For everybody that's listening, what we heard a couple of tracks, and there's a strong focus on Jesus and your kind of rock star life that's more committed to your Christian walk now. What can listeners expect from this new album?
Well, I hope that they get some hope and faith from it. I really do. Again, I said earlier, I think we need it now. This world's it seems to be getting darker and darker to me, and we need a lot more light in it. And a lot of people are hurting, and hopefully there's a song on this album called "Lean on the Cross," and really people's faith, it's up to you what you want to believe and what you are trying to strive for. But there's a song called "It's Up to You" that's really all about, hey, it's up to you whether you want to accept Jesus or not. And again, it goes back to us not trying to push anything on anybody. It really is an individual thing. It's up to you to make a relationship with Jesus Christ, and if you don't want to, then that's your deal.
Yeah, I hear that. And with this message of hope, you mentioned the world is increasingly dark, and I agree. When I'm not talking about entertainment or other like pop culture stories, we're talking about the news. And with an election year, there's so much to talk about, and there's so much going on, not even politically, but really like societally, with boys becoming girls, girls becoming boys. It's just really an interesting time to be alive. How much of that is affecting you in what you do and how you make your music?
Hey, you're right. It's a political world. I've been a Democrat. I've been a Republican. I've been an independent. For me, I think I think we have fans that are both. So I try to really kind of split the difference there. But you know what? I believe that most people with common sense knows what's right and what's wrong. And I think that goes a long way. And it really has been for probably, I don't know how many years here, but it really has been a crazy whirlwind time, especially here in America. And now, you know, with all the wars going on and things going on, I think, you know I'm talking about my gospel album, but I think we need Christ now more than ever in this world.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. Folks, we're on with Johnny Van Zant, lead singer for Lynyrd Skynyrd. He's got a brand new album with his brother from 38 Special, and this is a compilation, a collaboration that they're doing, first one in forever, and I want you to check it out. Keep it locked right here. We're coming right back to wrap up with Johnny Van Zant. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. The best guests, the best opinions. This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
There you are. You're the highest of highest. There you are. You're the guiding light that guides us in this cruel and dangerous world. Lord, we need you more and more. There you are. I hear people saying, how can you believe in something you can't see?
That's There You Are by Van Zant, Johnny Van Zant, his brother Donnie Van Zant, new gospel album they've put out. And Johnny Van Zant, the hits keep rolling in. I'm loving what I'm hearing. You talked about this message of hope and light, and I think that's honestly what everybody needs nowadays. What is your take on how this affects tour life? It does, you know, some of the rock and roll music, some of yours and overall, some of it's edgy, some of it's a little darker. Are you shelving some of your older tracks, or do you keep the same type of playlist when you're on tour? How does that work out?
Yeah, no, not at all, man. You know what? Skynyrd's always had spirit about it, and the music, and mentioned our Lord in the music. And my brother was a real religious person too, and you know, there's a lot of great songs that have so many great messages that Skynyrd had, like That Smell, you know, which is about, hey, you shouldn't be out, you know, doing this and that, you know, and Saturday Night Special, you know, handguns, you know, hey, are made for killing, you know, but there's so many great songs that Skynyrd has, and no, we're not changing the set list at all.
You got to keep it gangster, right, for the fans.
Oh yeah, you know what, man? We got the best fans in the world. Skynyrd fans have been around for years, and hey, we're 3 generations. Heck, we're working on 4 generations now of fans with Skynyrd, and you know, it's pretty wild. I you know, read a lot of comments, and we had a show on Easter one time, and this lady, I read her comment. She goes, at which, hey, myself, I was like, okay, we have to play on Easter, guys. Let's go, you know. And but she said, I kind of felt weird about coming to a Skynyrd show on Easter. You know, it's Easter Sunday. And she said, but until I saw your John 3:16 tattoo, and I said, I'm in a good place. I have John 3:16 tattooed on my arm. So I said, yeah, we were definitely in a good place. But it's a spiritual thing, Skynyrd concerts are, because of so much of all the tragedy, of course, the band's been through, and of all the triumphs of still having the music going and having millions of fans worldwide.
Johnny Van Zant, we've got a pretty big reach on this program with callers all across the country, and there's a couple of them. Before I let you go, I want you to hear from a few of them. We've got, let me see, where do we start here? James in Danbury, Connecticut, WLAD. Very quickly, you're on with Johnny Van Zant and me.
Johnny Van Zant, how you doing? Great to talk to you, bro. Just very quickly, I've been following you guys since you were Sounds of the South record, Al Cooper's label, back in the early days with Leon Wilkerson. I think the band's great. All formations of the band have been great with 38 Special. Your music is timeless, and my favorite song is Simple Man. You guys rock, and keep the faith, brother. We need Jesus in a big way these days.
Thank you, my friend, and you picked a great song there, Simple Man. That song, 9 times out of 10, if I talk to a Skynyrd fan, that's one of their favorites for sure.
That's a classic, right? A classic staple in Americana. James, thanks for your call, brother. Let me see. Where do we go from here? We're going to go to Jim is in Lockport, Illinois, in the center of the country, WLS. Jim, you're on with Johnny Van Zant and Rich Valdez.
Okay, thanks so much, you guys. And Johnny, God bless you. So happy you're doing well. Just been a huge fan of you guys for growing up in the 80s, 90s. Fantastic. I had a question, John. Where did you guys ever come up with the name Lynyrd Skynyrd? I was always curious about that, and I'll hang up and listen.
Thanks, Jim.
All right, no problem, brother. Well, he was a gym coach at the high school here many, many years ago. And back then, the guys would go to school, and they'd have very little hair just over their ears, just a little bit. So Coach Skynyrd didn't like long hairs, so he would always suspend them. And one night, they were playing actually a place called Good Shepherd, and they were known as the 1% back then. And they said as a joke, hey, we're changing the name of the band because he kicked 2 or 3 of them out that day from school, and to Lynyrd Skynyrd, and it just stuck. And it was a pretty amazing thing. But he ended up becoming really good friends with the guys in the band and actually introduced the band a few times and became famous around Skynyrd's hometown here, Jacksonville.
Outstanding. Thank you, Jim in Lockport. I appreciate it. And we're going to round it out here with Paul in Boise, Idaho, WBFI. Paul, go for it.
Thank you very much. Thanks for being on there tonight. I've been a lifelong fan since I think it was 1974 when I first heard Second Helping. I traded a Led Zeppelin for that album. And, yeah, I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It was awesome. And from that moment on, I even made one of your guys' concerts in Oakland, California in 1977, and I saw it on YouTube, the same concert that I went to about a year and a half ago, and it was really something to see that again and to experience that.
All right. Paul, thank you very much. I appreciate that. And I know what everybody wants to know, Johnny Van Zant, is the official name of the new album and where people can find it.
Well, it's called Always Look Up, Van Zant, Always Look Up. You can check out Frontier Records and also our website, vanzant.com or vanzantband.com.
Outstanding, brother. Well, listen, man, I appreciate you. When you play in New York, I'm coming to the show. When are you guys scheduled to be here?
Oh, I don't know. With Skynyrd, we just played Jones Beach not too long ago.
Wow.
Yeah, I had a great audience there, man. We got our fans in the New York area up there are just something else, and always come out and support. And we had a sellout show there, and hopefully we'll be playing up there again next summer We don't have the complete schedule together, but you can check that on LynyrdsKynyrd.com. It always pops up. So
outstanding. Well, I'll be sure to check it out if you guys are in town, and everybody grab a copy of the new album. And give them the website one more time, Johnny.
For the Van Zant album, always look up as VanZantBand.com or VanZant.com. And you can also find it at Frontier Records.
Boom. Well, absolute pleasure. Godspeed to you. I love what you're doing with the music. Keep up the good work. You're a gentleman, a scholar, and a patriot, and I appreciate it.
Thank you, my friend. Love our country, and I appreciate you having me this evening.
You bet. Folks, we continue with your calls, your thoughts, and more. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Look at Rich Valdez. He's now a radio host, and he's a great radio host.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
He commented more than once that, that Hitler did some good things too. And of course, if you know history, again, I think he's lacking in that. But if you know what Hitler was all about, it'd be pretty hard to make an argument that he did anything good.
So what would you say when he said to you that Hitler did a lot of good things?
Well, I tell him that. I said, sir, first of all, you should never say that. But if you knew what Hitler was all about from the beginning to the end, everything he did was in support of his racist, fascist life, philosophy. So that nothing he did, you could argue, was good. It was certainly not done for the right reason. And, but he would occasionally say that.
What would he say when you would lay that out to him?
He'd just, that'd be the end of the conversation usually.
Likely story, General Kelly. That is the former White House chief of staff in a phone interview with the New York Times, saying that Trump told him Hitler did some good things too. Interesting how they want to make Trump out to be Hitler and some sort of fascist when he's been not fascistic and he's been extraordinarily friendly towards the Jews, so much more than the current administration that have thrown the Jews under the bus, right? Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, they've been antagonistic towards the Jews, as was Obama before them. So it doesn't quite add up, but let's get your thoughts on this. Debbie is in Canton, Ohio on WNIR. She disagrees. Go ahead, Debbie.
Oh, yes. Hi, Rich. Oh, what a fun night, because when I called, I didn't know, listening to the Lynyrd Skynyrd, Johnny Van Zant, that warmed my heart. I love that band, and I saw them in person in Akron at the small venues and 38 Special.
Nice.
Many times. What's his brother's name? He just said my brother,
Donnie.
my brother.
Well, there's two of them, Donnie and his late brother, Ronnie,
Donnie
who started
and Johnny.
Lynyrd Skynyrd. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Debbie, the music means we got to go. You know what? If you're still around, give me a call back at the midnight hour so we can talk about General Kelly. All right, amigos, we're coming right back with way more to discuss. Keep it locked right here. I'm Rich Valdez. It's America at Night, and we're coming right back. Don't move a muscle.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to the Wednesday night edition of the program. We're live, we're national. Here's the phone number if you want to join us, 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. And action-packed show so far, right? Got to interview Lynyrd Skynyrd, lead singer Johnny Van Zant. He's got a new album with his brother. We just wrapped that up. That was a lot of fun. Not every day you get to interview a rock legend. And on to bigger news. Not bigger, but more political, right? You've got John Kelly saying that Donald Trump believes that fascism would work better. Now, of course, John Kelly's been critical of Trump for a while, but all of this is coming out now. Why? Well, A, to try and, affect the outcome of the election. But B, because he's got a book. And that's what people do when they write a book. They want to say the most outlandish things. And, what's the worst that can happen? Trump's going to say, he's a liar, wrong, you're fake news. He knows that he's going to say that. They don't care. They will lie about Trump no matter what. Anyway, Kamala Harris, who I like to call Que mala eres, which means how bad you are in Spanish. Que mala eres was on CNN tonight with Anderson Cooper and Dana Bash and, the CNN people. And she did what she normally does. And I played you a short clip earlier, but I'm going to play you a little bit longer clip here. Here she gets fact-checked by the moderator, Anderson Cooper, after making fun of Trump's border wall. Listen to this.
Is a border wall stupid?
Well, let's talk about Donald Trump and that border wall. So remember, Donald Trump said Mexico would pay for it? Come on, they didn't. How much of that wall did he build? I think the last number I saw is about 2%. And then when it came time for him to do a photo op, you know where he did it? In the part of the wall that President Obama built.
But you're agreeing to a bill that would earmark $650 million to continue building that wall.
I pledge that I am going to bring forward that bipartisan bill to further strengthen and secure our border. Yes, I am. And I'm going to work across the aisle to pass a comprehensive bill that deals with a broken immigration system. I think Jackson's question, part of it was to acknowledge that America has always had migration, but there needs to be a legal process for it. People have to earn it. And that's the point that I think is the most important point that can be made, which is we need a president who is grounded in common sense and practical outcomes. Like, let's just fix this thing. Let's just fix it. Why is there any ideological perspective on this? Let's just fix the problem.
To fix the problem, you're doing this compromise bill. It does call for $650 million that was earmarked under Trump to actually still go to build the wall.
I am not afraid of good ideas where they occur.
So you don't think it's stupid anymore?
I think what he did and how he did it did not make much sense because he actually didn't do much of anything. I just talked about that wall, right? We just talked about it. He didn't actually do much of anything.
But you do want to build some wall.
I want to strengthen our border.
That means she wants El Trompito's wall. And good for you, Anderson Cooper, for having a shred of dignity, sir, and asking the questions and fact-checking her like you should. Good for you. CNN appreciates it. America appreciates it. And she's literally doing everything that Trump had done and wanted to do, and they fought him on it. And now that they've created a bigger problem, they're trying to solve it by using Trump's strategies. You can't make this stuff up. The reality is that while Donald Trump is out there flipping burgers and filling fries at the Mickey D's drive-thru in Philly, She's out there flip-flopping like she usually does. Kamala Harris is a joke. She really is a joke. And it's a shame. It's a shame that this is what we've been reduced to as a nation, to the standard bearer of our other major party. Honestly, this is irrespective of how the polls look and this and that. This is an unfair fight. She's mismatched with Trump. She's out of her league. She shouldn't even be in the race. But that's where we are. Out of her mind, honestly. Just out of her mind. Anyway, that's Kamala Harris getting fact-checked by Anderson Cooper. Now, then we go on to another clip. In this one, count what is happening in this one? Yes. This is the one where I'm being told in my headphones that Dana Bash says that Kamala Harris failed to seal the deal with this particular town hall. Listen to this.
I'll just tell you what I'm hearing from people who I have been talking to, and that is that if her goal was to close the deal, they're not sure she did that. And, you know, some people have asked, is she being held to a different standard? Maybe, but that's maybe the world that she's living in. And on the question of who she is, people are understanding that a little bit more. But what she will do, the question about her legislative priorities, name one, there wasn't one. You know, some more of her personality and her sort of character questions about your weaknesses or what mistakes did you make? Not necessarily the answers there.
Dana Bash can't even cover for you. Listen, that's pretty bad, right? Because it's not like these people, and when I say these people, I mean the left within the media at CNN, Anderson Cooper, Dana Bash, and the rest of them. These people don't want to be objective reporters. They want to help her. They just can't because she's so bad. She's living up to her name, how bad she is. That's the bottom line here. They have nowhere else to put their face. They have to say, yeah, it looks like she didn't get it done. Sorry, folks. Kamala Harris couldn't pull it off. I mean, asked about how she does this and says that she needs to fix the problem, turn the page, new generation of leadership. She's the border czar. She's the one that created these problems. These contracts that they've been giving out for people to transport unaccompanied minors, this was the answer that they came up with to prevent what they called kids in cages. Remember that? That was when President Trump had the wisdom to say, you know what, you got these kids coming in. We can't even prove that these people are related to the adults that are bringing these kids in or the ones that are coming by themselves. So we're going to hold them in our custody. Instead, now they can, on their app, they can just come right into the country. The CBP One app, I was forgetting the name of that last night. The CBP One app. They go ahead and figure out wherever they want to go to their trafficker of choice. And that's it. And we help facilitate the deal. I said it before and I'll say it again. Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, Alejandro Mayorkas, and the Democrat Party in Washington are operating, facilitating, aiding, and abetting the largest human smuggling operation this country's ever seen. It's an underground railroad of the modern-day slave trade, and it's happening right at our southern border, funded by your tax dollars. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Thank you, Rich, and thank you for everything. I know you very well, and I listen, but I have a lot of people that listen, and they love your show, and I appreciate it very much.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Just like Mark Milley, former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, who said that Donald Trump is fascist to the core. It just demonstrates that Donald Trump is not interested in promoting our democratic system and our values as Americans. And so, therefore, I find it absurd and appalling that so many Americans are willing to just dismiss these comments. And the undecided voters that are still out there, I think they really need to take this into account. When you have individuals such as John Kelly and Mark Milley saying this about Donald Trump, is this the country that you want your children and grandchildren to grow up in? I certainly hope not.
That is John Brennan, former director of the CIA. He says that it's absurd and appalling that so many Americans support Trump. Would you believe it? Now, do you think it's because, like he says, there's a mismatch in the values, the American values, or is it a mismatch in the fact that these guys embrace so much of the big government mantra, the socialist left, and Trump really didn't vibe with that? He didn't match up with that. I'm going to go with that one. Now, I've never appreciated John Brennan or his service to the country. He was the campaign manager for Gus Hall, a candidate for president of the United States running under the communist umbrella, right? Communist Party USA, CPUSA was his party. And this guy ends up becoming the CIA director. Crazy stuff. But that's what big government's all about. This is what they do. They believe in this stuff. And we have to take a pause and take a hard look at this stuff and figure out what's going on. And that's why I want to have a conversation with J.T. Young. He's the author of Unprecedented Assault, How Big Government Unleashed America's Socialist Left. J.T. Young, welcome, sir.
Thank you so much, Rich, for having me on.
You bet. So when you hear former CIA director John Brennan berating Trump, saying he's a fascist, and we have to listen to former General Milley and Kelly as well, do you think this is about their differences over policy or their differences over how much power the government should have?
Not knowing either men as well as you do, I have a hard time assigning which to which, but I definitely get the sense as we're watching this election start to clearly shift in Donald Trump's favor that the other side is getting increasingly desperate to throw things to the wall and hope something will stick and change the momentum that's clearly moving in Trump's direction.
Yeah, and when we talk about the title of your book, Unprecedented Assault, was this a particular assault on our constitutional system or our republic that you're thinking of, or an ongoing assault? How did you come up with the title, and what are you zeroing in on here?
Okay, it's a great question. I think probably just like you, as you saw what you thought and I thought were aberrations, when you saw a defund the police movement, when you saw a call for open borders to abolish ICE, sanctuary cities, radical DEI initiatives, that each time I saw one, you would think, well, this is an aberration. This can't be. And each one following the next, you realized it was a continuation. And the more I looked, the more I saw the socialist left. And that took me back to an old question political scientists have asked about America for a very long period of time, which is, why is there no socialism in America? And I took the question the other way and said, why is there socialism now for the first time? And how is there socialism now for the first time?
Well, I think that's an excellent question. And what was the conclusion you came up with? Because I think it's become incredibly popular. And I think it's a really good question, because I, for the life of me, can't figure out why so many people have become so attracted to being communist sympathizers and embracing socialism, other than the fact that they've kind of achieved their goal of taking over organized labor, taking over higher education, taking over a lot of media organizations, and I would say probably the majority of career positions in our government.
I would say there's a confluence here of a long-term trend and a near-term trend. The long-term trend is to step back and realize the socialist left has failed throughout American history, and it did because it could never deliver anything. It needed a big government that didn't exist. America, we may not think about it because it's so far into our current perception, but America had an exceptionally small government well into the 20th century. So the socialist left could never win political power. They could never create a big government like existed in other countries. Instead, the reverse happened here. A big government grew up underneath the socialist left. Now they just need to access it. And that access is the near-term trend. You have an administration that is very weak. Joe Biden was never the first choice of most Democrats. His base is small, and clearly, as we see his approval ratings, it has withered dramatically over time. He becomes ever more dependent on the left, and they now, through this administration, have access to a government that they could never have created on their own. But suddenly, they have opportunities that they've never had before.
So, in looking at that, it seems like the perfect time for those that were once considered fringe radicals to be in the driver's seat and be considered more mainstream within their party. No longer are the AOCs, Elizabeth Warrens, and Bernie Sanders of the Democratic left. I'm not going to say pariah, but they're just not the outlier. Now they're the norm, and Joe Biden is their cheerleader. And Kamala Harris seems to be picking up the mantle where he left off. Does that sound fair?
I think it's very fair. And to your point, Rich, look at 2020. That election tells you so much, because if you look back at 2016, when Bernie Sanders ran against Hillary Clinton, he mounted a very hard drive against her. He came, if the deck had not been stacked against him, he could have won the nomination then. By 2020, the entire party had now moved to the left. If you look at where the 2020 field was, virtually the entire field was extreme left. Everybody trying to outdo themselves. And if you remember, Joe Biden tried to run in the beginning as sort of a moderate. And that was not going to work for him. It was not going to win him the nomination. But what really helped him the most was the field was so crowded on the far left of the party, and they kept knocking each other off. He kept being everybody's second or third choice, and he just survived through it.
Yeah, he won by attrition. JT Young, stand by. We're going to continue this conversation about your book, Unprecedented Assault, How Big Government Unleashed America's Socialist Left. And we'll pick up there at 2020 when we come back with JT Young. Folks, the number, if you want to join us, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. Keep it locked right here. Don't move a muscle. I'm Rich Valdez.
Rich Valdez, the day that you welcome me to your show is a happy day for me, and I hope that America appreciates what you're doing because you're fighting a good fight.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, we continue our conversation with JT Young and his book, Unprecedented Assault, How Big Government Unleashed America's Socialist Left. JT Young's a former congressional political analyst and policy advisor. And we left off with how the Democrat Party became increasingly more left-wing from 2016 to 2020 in the Democrat primary, and we left off at 2020. Let's take it from there, J.T. Young.
Okay. Thanks so much, Rich. I think, again, when you look at that 2020 primary and you look at the majority of the Democrats stacked on the far left of that, and Biden being the only one who was not with that pedigree, remember that Vice President Harris was among that group. She just didn't last very long. So you tend to forget that she was even there, because not only did she not make it to the finish line, she didn't make it to the starting line. But she was staking her positions on the far left of the party. So as we're looking ahead and you're trying to peer into the crystal ball of what a Harris administration would look like, all you have to do is go back and look at what she was promising in her ill-fated campaign in 2020.
J.T. Young, I would love to look at the things she was promising back then. The problem is she says she doesn't support those things anymore, and she's kind of all over the place, and she it's kind of hard to nail her down, and we have a media that I think is very not curious, and nobody pushes back, and we're just seeing a little bit of pushback now. She did a town hall on CNN tonight where they fact-checked her on her border policy, but they didn't really call out the fact that the current border policy is the policy that they created, this policy of unaccompanied minors. They criticized Trump for kids in cages, and this new policy they've hired contractors to move these kids from the border to their sponsor, but these are not even family members, and for all we know, these people could be the host family that's trafficking them, and it leads up to this kids that are missing court dates to the tune of 300,000 unaccompanied minors that have yet to ever report back, and here we are. Right, this is her border policy. This is the Biden-Harris border policy, and there's no pushback. So my thought here is, while our government, right, big government, unleashing America's socialist left, I think that's 100% spot on. I just don't know if it matches up with the American electorate come 13 days from now when we have Election Day.
And I think you're absolutely right, and I don't think it does. And I think the hard thing, and certainly Vice President Harris wants to make this as hard as possible for voters to discern who she really is. And we can get wrapped up in her word salads and her word games as to her positions changing, but her claim that her values have not changed. And really, Americans at this point just need to be asking themselves basic questions. And the first one is, you were there for over 3.5 years. Why, if these were your policies, didn't you implement them before?
Right. She's talking about this border bill that they proposed, 3 months ago, and that they say Trump tanked the bill. Why didn't that come earlier? And I think we all know the answer. They didn't care. They knew they couldn't get it passed. So I think ultimately that just doesn't translate into votes. Now, if we shift gears quickly and talk a little bit of political strategy here, if you're advising a Harris campaign, what do you tell her to do in order to win the swing states? Polls right now, at least the ones I'm looking at, show within the margin of error, but looks like Trump is going to win all of them, at least from what I'm looking at. Do you think that's accurate, that Trump wins the 7 swing states?
It's hard to know exactly when. The 7 swing states you're talking about are absolutely the pivot point for this election. They were in 2016. Trump won 6 of 7 then. They were in 2020 when Biden won 6 of 7 then, and they will be again this year. And I think, to your point, whether Trump wins all 7 is really not the question. He needs to flip 35 electoral votes. And if you're really looking at this election, it could be over on the East Coast. If he flips Pennsylvania and Georgia and holds North Carolina, it's over. The only state that Harris could flip is North Carolina. And so if he holds North Carolina and flips Georgia and Pennsylvania, that gives him the 35 he needs. And what happens in Michigan, Wisconsin, Arizona, and Nevada really becomes irrelevant.
Yeah,
he just needs to win those first three. But if he doesn't win Georgia and Pennsylvania, he still has a crack at the votes he needs in Michigan, Wisconsin, Nevada, and Arizona.
Now, for kicks and giggles, what do you think about, and I haven't seen a poll in probably over a month, but the last one I saw for New York and New Jersey showed them, I think, both within single digits, which is pretty odd for a Republican in a blue state like New York or New Jersey. Do you think there's a shot of that?
The state that I would have my eye on is Virginia. I think that's the big wild card. I know exactly what you're talking about, and I think what you're talking about, I look at the same thing. And the thing that strikes me is in states that Harris should be winning by more, she's not. And that's a danger sign. But the one I think she could really lose is Virginia. And that is one to keep your eye on. That's going to be, I think that one could be a really interesting, and her real concern is going to be if she starts to get the odor of defeat and the worry that her people then don't show up.
Yeah, and that's a real possibility because she's had a very lackluster showing in the last few days, and this is where she should be her strongest and most robust going into the final stretch. JT Young, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, you're absolutely right. And you can see in the polls, you're just watching, she was really capping, when you look at a national average, just averaging all the polls, she was capping out at about 2.5% lead at one point. That really was not enough to give her security. And if you look at them now, she's below 1%. So the hemorrhaging is happening. If she doesn't stop this and her people start to feel like, well, I'm just wasting my time.
Right, they're not going to show up.
You could see this swing the other way because Donald Trump's people will show up. He's won 5 national elections. His people are solid. She has never run a national election at the top of the ticket. Her people are in question.
Yeah, very well put. JT Young, let everybody know how they got a copy of your book, Unprecedented Assault, How Big Government Unleashed America's Socialist Left.
Certainly go on to Amazon. You can buy anything there, and it will go on sale. You can pre-order it now. It will be out to the public on October 29th.
Outstanding. If people want to follow you, is there a website or a social media handle?
There is a website for the book, and it can be reached through jt.young.com.
Outstanding. JT Young, I appreciate the conversation. I hope to have a follow-up with you maybe right after Election Day, do a postmortem, and we'll see what the future has in store.
It would be great, Rich. Thanks so much for having me on, and keep up the fight.
Thank you, sir. Godspeed. And, amigos, we continue with your thoughts, your calls, and more coming up straight ahead.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. America at Night, your home for the best election coverage.
All right, familia, welcome back. Rich Valdez, and we're getting ready to kick off Open Phones Across America. That's at the top of the next hour. I'll be grabbing a couple of your calls right now. But I want to go to Clayton, calling us from Washington, Indiana, WTAW. Clayton, go right ahead. You're on with Rich Valdez.
Hi, this is Clayton. By the way, I was actually wanting to give my thoughts about...
And there you go. I want to give my thoughts about the hang-up button. Now, that wasn't me, folks. That was him. I love a good conversation. And I think he was actually going to say something very nice about our guest, Mr. Young, who just hung up. But I think his phone failed him. So we will continue. And we will go to... well, before we go to that, I want to go to this. I have a story here that I was just about to share with you. Hold on. Don't go. Here it is. This is it right here. Famed polling guru Nate Silver... He says his gut says that Donald Trump will win 2024 presidential election. Nate Silver from 538. Election savant Nate Silver has put his marker down and revealed that his gut says former President Trump will emerge victorious in the November 5th election, while warning that polling data indicates that the race could still go either way. Well, of course, that's, you hedge your bets, you play it safe that way. Quote, in an election where several battleground states are all polling within a percentage point or two, 50-50 is the only responsible forecast, Silver said, whose model currently rates the Republican nominee with a 53.1 chance, 53.1% chance, of becoming the 47th president. And he wrote that in a New York Times op-ed that was published just yesterday. Now, he continued, when I deliver this unsatisfying news, I inevitably get a question. Come on, Nate, what's your gut say? Silver went on to say, so, okay, I'll tell you. My gut says Donald Trump. And my guess is that it's true for many anxious Democrats. Well, good for you, Nate Silver. You know what he's doing? Making sure people will still listen to him in the future. Because nobody wants to be on the losing side of these things, right? All I could think about is the people that like to tease me on Twitter, right? The pro-Putin patriots, the ones that love Putin. They're like, oh, that Vlad, he's fantastic. He's a man's man. There's no BLM in Russia. He's just taking back what's rightfully his with Ukraine. Those people, those are the same people that say, just watch, Kamala Harris is not going to be it. They're going to put in Michelle Obama, last minute, October surprise, right? Those people. Any of those people out there? Yeah. Have no idea what's going on. Meanwhile, you have this woman here actively running for president. Not as active as she should be, but active nonetheless. And we have to be informed patriots. Reagan called on us to be informed patriots. But there's so much crazy out there. And look, it's not that crazy. I think a lot of the quote-unquote conspiracy theories, if you analyze the thought process with many of them, some of them make sense. It's when you add in a lot of the sexy stuff, the people with the secret clearance and leaking this and that and people going to jail for this and that, all of that stuff is fake, phony, and fraud. But the reality that there may be an active attempt to derail our society, whether through a bomb, whether through a minor or major catastrophic event, or multiple minor or major catastrophic events across the country. All of that is real. We have admitted a ton of people into this country. General Blaine Holt, who's the former United States Deputy Representative to NATO, Air Force General, he's been on here a number of times telling people to organize at their county level, to be prepared with food and water and firearms and a battery-operated radio in case communications go down. He's telling people to be prepared. Now, does that mean that's going to happen right now? I would say it's unlikely. Does it mean it's going to happen next month? I would say that's unlikely, too. Does it mean that it may happen after a Trump presidency is completed? I think that's a possibility, right? I think there's always a possibility that could happen tomorrow, right? I don't rule anything out. I'm just not going to sit here and sell that fear. I'm not a demagogue. But I don't think it's far-fetched to think that something bad can happen when you have people from foreign countries, taking over buildings in Colorado. If that's happening right now, what else could happen? Plenty, right? So I don't think it's fair to give them a critique on that stuff. On the smaller things, and really just the predictions. The other prediction I've heard, besides Michelle Obama, which is clearly wrong, unless that changes in the next 13 days. The other prediction that I think is clearly wrong, in addition to the mass arrests of bad people and the eradication of sin and crime, is that we won't even have an election. Yep, there's people out there that are saying, nope, we're not going to have an election. There's people out there, actually had one on this show. Guy came on to give reaction to a country song that hit the #1 chart. Not the guy that came on today. This is, I don't know, last year or some months ago. And he starts talking about his thoughts on why he believes that Biden's not actually president. He believes Trump is actually president secretly, and lying to the American people as he pretends to run for president because he's currently president and he's going to get a third term. And that's somehow legal. I mean, just the things that I hear where the good guys are worse than the bad guys in terms of, shredding the Constitution and just outright lying to the American people. But as long as you do it in the name of USA and you do it in the name of all things good and holy, then it's okay. And to that I say no. Look, if tomorrow comes, and even if it's Trump himself, and he says, look, we have to do a mass deportation, and every single person that is an American citizen, we're going to have to, stick a microchip in you so that we know you're an American, and everybody who doesn't have that microchip, well, they're getting kicked out. We're mass deporting them. Am I going to sit here and say, well, Trump's got a point there? No, absolutely not. And I know that's a figurative, hypothetical. But my point is, we have to know right from wrong, irrespective of who's saying it. Right is right and wrong is wrong. Anyway, more on that and your calls when we come back. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. The phone number is 833-4-VALDEZ, and that's Valdez with an S. Let's go back to Clayton. We found him. His phone's working. The deep state did not win tonight. Washington, Indiana, WTAY. Clayton, go for it very quickly.
Hi, I am back again. I definitely, like I said, I don't agree with a lot of what Kamala Harris is doing. I actually don't agree with any of it, to be honest with you. And I definitely I don't think Trump was vulgar at all in what he said. I think what he said about Kamala for the last few days and even before has been deserved wholly.
Yeah, good point. Clayton, thank you for your call. Shout out to everybody in Washington, Indiana, WTAY in the building. Folks, it's open phones across America. Your calls and more coming up. Going to go to California, Indiana, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Texas, and more coming up right now. 833-4-VALDEZ, 833-482-5337. Keep it locked right here. I'm Rich Valdez.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. America's favorite late night talk program featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. And thanks for tuning into the third hour of the program. It is our Wednesday night edition of the show. 833-482-5337 is our phone number, 833-4-VALDEZ. We are live, we are national, and the title of the show remains the same, Rich Valdez, America at Night, but we like to call it Open Phones Across America here. Open Phone America, the third hour of the show. It's a time-honored tradition on this program, and I love this part of the show because, there's tradition and history here, and the genesis of it from Larry King back in 1978 to Jim Bohannon carrying that torch for another 30 years, and now you, the American people, and me lucky enough to do it with you guys. So again, that number, 833-482-5337. And some of what we've been talking about tonight, let's see. Nate Silver, I just talked about that, but just to remind you, the election guru, he says that Donald Trump is likely to win the 2024 presidential election. The momentum is there for El Trumpito. What else we got? Kamala Harris is seemingly going all in on amnesty despite criticizing Trump's border wall. She is happy, very happy, to still ask for $650 million to build said border wall. You can't make that stuff up. And she was on a town hall that she did tonight on CNN with Anderson Cooper. And we have a couple of clips from that I have not yet played. But she does believe that Donald Trump is a fascist. Listen to this.
You've quoted General Milley calling Donald Trump a fascist. You yourself have not used that word to describe him. Let me ask you tonight, do you think Donald Trump is a fascist?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. And I also believe that the people who know him best on this subject should be trusted. Again, look at their careers. These are not people, with the exception, I think, of only Mike Pence. These were not politicians. These are career people who have served in the highest roles in national security, who have served as generals in our military, who are highly respected. Talking about the person who would be commander-in-chief, not to mention what we know and what they've told us about how he talks about the military, servicemen and women, referring to them as suckers and losers.
That again, Kamala Harris at a CNN town hall tonight. And she goes on, right? She goes on. She's answering Anderson Cooper's question about why she hasn't done anything yet. And she agrees that things need to be fixed. Listen to this.
Some voters, though, might ask, you've been in the White House for 4 years. You were vice president, not the president. But why wasn't any of that done the last 4 years?
Well, there was a lot that was done, but there's more to do, Anderson. And I'm pointing out things that need to be done, that haven't been done, but need to be done.
That is Kamala Harris absolutely saying nothing at all. Absolutely nothing at all. I can't. I really can't. There's not much more I could say about this. This woman, you ask her anything. What time is it, Kamala? The issue is that we're going to be unburdened by what has been done, that people wear watches on their wrists. Wrists are connected to your wrist bone and your arm bone. And I mean, she just goes on and on about absolutely nothing and never answers the question. And I think the American voter is aware of it and they're sick of it. It's my thought. And I want to know what you guys think. Let's go to Porcupine calling us from Ventura, California, KVTA. Go for it.
Hi, Rich.
How are you, sir?
I'm great, thanks. You know, I got to tell you that I'm terrified of this upcoming election.
Why?
Because I believe that the Democrats in power, the whole group of them, not just Kamala, have many ways to cheat, and they're fairly easy for them because they are the the party in power. So election officials and precincts and, auditing. Somebody has to audit that software, and somebody has to program that software. Now, probably just like the judiciaries in New York City that are all Democrats that run roughshod over Donald Trump and any conservative, why wouldn't the election officials just go in and audit, say, 100,000 red votes and say, oh, we're going to nullify these because we don't like them? I mean, I believe that's going to happen, sir. I really, truly believe they're not going to give up power, Rich. Kamala and company is not going to relinquish power at any time.
The thing, Porcupine, is if you've ever seen an election map by county, right? Because you got to remember, elections are administered by county. And if you've ever seen the county map, it's more red than blue. So when you talk about places like New York, that's true, right? There are blue people in charge of blue voters and blue states. But there's a lot of red states. And even within blue states, there's a lot of red counties. So it's not fair to suggest that Democrats have this power that they're unwilling to let go of everywhere. They don't have carte blanche. They don't have this power everywhere. Donald Trump is not going to win this election because of Republicans. He's going to win the election, in my opinion, because of Democrats, because of how badly the Democrats are running their presidential campaign, how badly they've run this country. And ultimately, people are just going to be sick and tired, and they're saying, you know what? They're voting against being broke. They're voting against the next war. They're voting against Ukraine. They're voting against more funding of people. I want you to listen to a clip. There's a pastor out there. Let me see his name, if I can find this real quick. What number is that, Count Delacula? So number 13 on the hit parade today. Pastor Philip Fisher, Porcupine, listen to this. He's on MSNBC yesterday, and he says that he agrees with the idea of mass deportation, and listen to why.
I agree with the idea of mass deportation, largely. You have criminals in this country who are destroying our nation. They're coming in here, getting earmarked bills and policies to open up businesses, get free housing, get access, easier access than those who are legally immigrated to this country to welfare and other benefits. So, like, as a taxpayer, we have to pay for these guys to have luxuries of life, and we don't get anything, especially black Americans who suffer so much in the system under Democrats. We don't get anything. That's insane.
So there he says it. We as black Americans don't get anything. That's insane. Black Americans are going to be the first ones to turn away from the Democrat Party. I mean, the polling's already showing it's happening. They normally come out in 90% support for Democrats. Right now, they're at 72% for Harris. Big loss there. But guess who's up with minorities, in particular Hispanics? Donald Trump, El Trumpito, the 45th president of these United States, is coming in 11 points higher than them, according to yesterday's USA Today Suffolk University poll. So all of that says to me that Trump is very likely to win this if everybody shows up. Nobody can take their foot off the gas. There's still a number of days. They're going to do everything they can to win, and we have to do everything we can to win. But I wouldn't be terrified. It's at the end of the day, it's just an election. I'm either going to talk about the great things that Trump is doing in the White House over the next year, or I'm going to talk about the bad things that Kamala is doing. My hope is that I don't have to do the latter, and that we're going to be able to move the country forward, and everybody's going to be a lot more comfortable. But ultimately, fear not, my brother, right? That's the best I can tell you is fear not. We don't need to operate in that spirit of fear, with that outlook of fear. We need to just pay attention to keeping our eye on the ball, stay focused, and we'll get this thing done. Porcupine, thanks for your call, brother. Folks, we're coming right back with the rest of your calls and more. 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
By the way, your ratings are up. Congratulations. I had somebody. It's always nice to check. I like to see, even if they're friends, I like to see how are they doing. Are people listening, right?
That's
right.
But
you're doing great.
America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
But certainly the former president is in the far right area. He's certainly an authoritarian, admires people who are dictators. He has said that. So he certainly falls into the general definition of fascist, for sure.
That, of course, is the man of the hour today, making his rounds to sell his book. Former Chief of Staff General John Kelly trashing Trump, saying he's a fascist. Again, people think fascist, you think Benito Mussolini. People think fascist, they think Adolf Hitler. People think fascist. How could you even put Trump in a category like that? Is he putting people in ovens? Is he starting a world war? What has he done? Now, of course, they're going to try and sell you the idea. And if you believe it, you believe it. That's on you. That somehow he said, sick 'em during the January 6th riot. I think that couldn't be further from the truth. It's very clear. I saw it with my own eyes. Trump said, go peacefully and patriotically down to the Capitol to make your voices heard. Right there, it was a rally. He was showing the power of the MAGA movement, not unleashing a mob of grandmas and grandpas that flew down to Washington to, wave their red hats. Clearly, there was something more sinister at play, and we saw that come to fruition. But this is where we are. I want to get your thoughts on the general and everything else we're talking about tonight. Let's go to Tex calling us from Amarillo, Texas, listening to the show online. Go for it.
Hey, Rich, thanks for taking my call, man. I love your show, and thanks for always telling us the truth. I think, so I served in the United States Army for 6 years, and part of the reason I did that is because I believe in the ideals of this country. I believe in being able to be free. I grew up being able to be free. Not all of my friends did. Not all the ones that are here now that are free grew up being able to be free, and it's a very precious thing, right? So, I signed up to help defend the people's right to free speech, right? And that's not always going to be honest, and that's not always going to be truth that people speak. But, Rich, what I want to know, man, is when does this become election interference? Because that's not legal, right? And what the amount of gaslighting and the amount of lies that are now coming out in support of this Harris campaign, so also we do not want people coming into our country that are trying to chop their neighbors up with machetes and break their door down with assault rifles, that are from gangs in another country, right? We do not want that. They don't think like us. They don't have the same logic that everyone's sitting at home wanting to think that everything is good all over the world. They don't have the same kind of logic as you do. And I speak into all of us, Rich, and so. And not just that, but the human trafficking element that is undoubtedly going on. I went to see my sister in Chesapeake, Virginia, her and her little kids recently, and we went out to this Sakura, one of those sushi places.
Sure. I know the place.
They do. Thought it'd be fun for the little girls. And so I ended up going back there 3 times just to pop my head in. We ordered out a couple more times just so I could go there. Because the whole time we were there, the wait staff of this Chinese restaurant, the wait staff was from all over Europe and all over Asia. Young, pretty girls with ridiculous amounts of makeup on that they clearly didn't put on themselves, and barely spoke any English. And I have a wife who was an immigrant, and when I see this pretty much obvious human trafficking going on at these different places,
It's heartbreaking, right? It's got to break your heart. You know, Tex, I'll tell you this, just to kind of go in order, and I hear your heart on this, I really do. The first thing you mentioned was, you know, the Harris campaign and all that. It's literally the job of every campaign to interfere in the election. Whose job it isn't is the governments, foreign governments, things like that. You know, so should we have cops, police agencies, the FBI, anything like that? No. Can you and me? Sure. Why not, right? I hope I'm interfering in the election, and I hope I'm messing people up that were like, you know, I wanted to vote for Harris, but after listening to you, you know, I'm going with the other guy. That's my hope. I really do. So on that point. On the other point, I appreciate your service to the country. I really do. And I think you're right that the general is out of line for calling Trump a fascist. I think the far left has gone way too far with their policies. They have created a scenario that I think is untenable and unsustainable, where the rest of the voters, they just don't want to be down with this. So when it comes down to what you're talking about, where we see the obvious human trafficking, and again, I haven't been in Chesapeake, Virginia, and I haven't been in Texas lately, but in New York City, since I was a kid, there's been a lot of hot spots. Hunts Point, Roosevelt Avenue in Queens. These places have always had lots of hookers. But what's going on in those places today, at least in Roosevelt Avenue in Queens, it's not a guy out there giving out little cards. So they would give out cards and they would say, chicas, chicas, chicas. This has been going on forever. Since I was a kid, I would see this stuff. What they do now is the women are out there. It used to be just the guy out there that, you know, if you were interested, they'd give you the card. You'd go to whichever storefront and, you know, do whatever you were going to do. And it's very obvious. You see it all day long. It's like Vegas almost. What's happening now is that the women themselves are out there and they're propositioning people. And that's something that is very new. You know, that wasn't the case forever and a day. So we're in a place that we shouldn't be in. I think we need to make a drastic change. I think Americans are sick and tired of everything you just mentioned. And I think you're spot on with that. And I think they're going to vote. The key here is for each and every one of us that's listening, we got to make sure we get people out to vote. We've got to make sure that we don't take anybody for granted, because people are like, oh, it looks like Trump's up in the polls. I don't have to get up that day. I was going to take off from work, but I'm going to go to work. No. Take off from work, go to work, volunteer, do what you got to do. The time is now. We have to make a difference. Tex in Amarillo, Texas, listening on richvaldez.com. Thanks for the call, brother. Folks, we're coming right back with the rest of your calls and more. 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
Now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Donald Trump wants us to think that this country is hopelessly divided between us and them. Now, for him, us means the, quote, real Americans who support him. Anybody who doesn't, they're them. And he employs this strategy like politicians have for millennia, because having people divided and angry boosts his chances of being elected. That's his focus. Is this going to help me? Not is it going to help you?
That, of course, is Barack Obama. And this is, you know, I don't often say that I think the Democrats are scared, that they're desperate. I really don't. You don't hear that from me. I believe these guys are gangsters. And the gangsters I know, they get killed for their hubris. But they don't. They never fear. They don't cow to anything. And that's how I look at the Democrats. Democrats are not afraid. That's why most of them don't have kids, so they don't have that vulnerability. They don't care. Right? Who are the crazy people that don't care? Sociopaths, right? They don't feel. Those are that's the radical left. And that's my thought about them. But I can tell you with this clip that we just played of Obama, it sounds to me like he's grasping, he's reaching, he's trying hard here. And not trying hard to make a case in a contentious election, but trying hard for something that doesn't seem like it's there. He sounds, in my opinion, desperate. And that's the best that I could say on that one. I want to get your thoughts on this. Otis in Morgantown, Kentucky, WKCT. Otis, what do you think of what Obama just said?
Really not a whole lot and everything. That guy doesn't know up from down, to be honest. It's his whole regime, what's on the line right now.
Yeah.
Don't get me started on him, because I can bring up stuff in the Bible where Jesus even mentioned him in Luke 10:18.
He mentioned Obama?
As lightning comes from the disciples and went out, they said they cast out demons even in his name and everything. He says, true, and see lightning descending from heaven. Well, my study Bible, I was looking for this guy named Balaam, the guy that the judge talked to.
Right,
All right. I've seen this word Barak, and it says Jewish, means lightning. And another word, that's not Obama, and it's Bama, a high place. So Jesus either mentioned his name in Jewish, because he did speak Jewish and Aramaic.
Yeah, Hebrew.
That's what my study Bible, but that ain't what I call it. But I don't care about that rascal.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you for what you're doing.
My
Jerome last night, he kind of struck a prayerful nerve for him, last night. And I just want to say, there ain't nothing in a name. Last name, there's nothing in a first-generation American or a 10th-generation American, because we're all Americans and adhere to the same Constitution.
That's right.
And then, Willie Phillips, I knew you was all right when John Schneider was on there and you hit that speed bump. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I want to say now that Johnny Van Zant, I appreciate that man so much, what he done. He had his own career. I've got his CD, the Johnny Van Zant Band, around here somewhere. Appreciate him, his brother Donnie, what they're doing. And just keep it up. They're American treasure.
Yeah, I agree with that. Staples in American music for sure. 100% right. Otis in Morgantown, Kentucky, I thank you for all of your kind words. I appreciate you listening to the show. And keep calling, my brother. Keep calling. Shout out to WKCT. And let me see. I wanted to play one more clip of audio before I move on. And it's of a voter, Chad Fain. He's a Philadelphia voter. He was on MSNBC yesterday. And Alex Wagner asked him a question about his thoughts on what Obama had recently said. And listen to this.
And I just wonder for anybody who heard that, like what they thought of that.
Deeply offended. I was deeply offended. And it felt like a moment where it's like, you N-words better get in line and do what we say. And it felt like him as the czar of the Democratic Party coming down to say, go get these N-words in line. And the general tone of it was disgusting. It was abhorrent. I don't respect it. I didn't like nothing about it. And Kamala, 2 days after that, is like, we love our black men. We have programs and things that we're rolling out for them, and she rolled out policy.
Good cop, bad cop. Because
I'm tired of the good cop, bad cop. I'm tired of it.
Well, there you go. You got a black voter talking about how offended he was with what Barack Obama's been saying. I got to tell you, I think Barack Obama's losing a little bit of his luster here because he's so desperate. Anyway, I want to get your thoughts on this stuff. Let me see. Where do we go? Let's go to Paul, Zanesville, Ohio, WHIZ. Paul, what's up, man?
Hey, how you doing, Rich?
Great. Yeah, good evening. Rich, I work in a retail establishment, and I am seeing more T-shirts with Trump and hats with Trump and so forth. I go through my neighborhood. I'm seeing signs for Trump and so forth, maybe 10 Trump Vance signs to a couple of Harrison Waltz signs. And, I just think that the American people are waking up. They're not woke anymore like they was in the wrong way. They're woke in the right way anymore, because I see this every day. But with the rhetoric that Barack Obama and Kamala Harris is putting out, I've heard that before. We're going to do this, we're going to do that. Kamala Harris, woman, do you expect for me to think that you could run this country when you couldn't even take care of our damn border? Are you serious, people? Come on.
Who's going to trust her again?
Yes, and that's my point. And, Donald Trump done proved that he could do it, and he'll do it again. And I have an amazing feeling that this is going to be a landslide. And thank you so much for letting me talk tonight, Rich.
Oh, Paul, it's always my pleasure. If I don't get to you, it's because there's not enough time, not because I don't want to talk to you. And a big shout out to everybody on WHIZ. And I think we're well positioned to do well because of the Democrats, right? I give all credit to Republicans when it's due, but this is a creation of the Democrats. They've done so poorly, and their base is so upset. And there's a reality about Donald Trump. Donald Trump is not a far-right crazy lunatic. He's not. Donald Trump was a Democrat for a very long time. He's a very common-sense New Yorker. And I think people forget this. Donald Trump is the recipient of an NAACP award, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. And he won that award and was presented that award by Rosa Parks, Mrs. I Will Not Sit in the Back of the Bus. I mean, if I ever won an award like that from Rosa Parks, I would never stop talking about it. A, he doesn't brag about it. And B, he won the award. Today, that was back when he was a Democrat, of course, right? And he was still donating to Chuck Schumer, and everybody liked him. Now that he's a Republican and he's not donating to Chuck Schumer, now he's a racist, he's a fascist. That's the latest one. He's a threat to democracy. It's absolutely ridiculous to see what's going on here. People see it a mile away. People aren't dumb. Women are not dumb. Women want to be able to take care of their families. Women don't want to buy ground beef all the time. Sometimes they want to buy steak. With this Biden-Harris economy, it's not happening. We're lucky if we're getting chicken for a reasonable price. People don't want to do it. And when her answer is, I'm going to go after the price gougers. Well, is that what Trump did to get us affordable groceries? He went after the price gougers? Or maybe he just got out of the way and cut some taxes. Gave some tax cuts to the rich. Let me tell you, tax cuts to the rich work really well for my pocket. And not because I'm rich, but most people work for rich people. So it just doesn't make any sense. And again, I'm not saying he gives the tax cut to the rich. It's just their logic is so flawed. Even when they're lying, their logic is flawed. Anyway, Paul, thank you, sir, for your call. I appreciate you, brother. Folks, we're coming right back with the rest of your calls. Ohio, Indiana, South Carolina, Alabama, and more. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
I love your show, everything you do. So what an honor, really, to join you and your listeners tonight.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. And I want to make a request to Count Delacula, who's in the studio. Count Delacula, I want to replay some of my favorite interviews in honor of our 2-year anniversary being on the air here. And it's been more than 2 years since I first started on this program, but since we renamed it and whatnot, it's been 2 years, I think, or close to that, or whatever the case is. But, so cue those up for us. We'll do a couple of those, not all of it, but just a couple, maybe on Friday night. Now, I want to continue with the rest of your calls. 833-4825-337, 833-4-VALDEZ. Let's see, where do we go? We've got calls from all over the place. I want to go to Claude, Ravenna, Ohio, WNIR. Go right ahead.
Good evening, Rich. I've got a couple questions for you.
Sure.
How do you feel, in your own words and thoughts, of the way Jim Bohannon would have assessed the situation that's going on as far as the elections?
It's tough to say. I really don't know. I can't put words in Jimbo's mouth, God rest his soul. I can only really, like you said, my words, my own thoughts. And I can tell you that I think we're having a little bit of a renaissance in America. I think that people are realizing that the American dream that people have always aspired to has been getting further and further and further away as the generations go by. There was a wonderful time in life that every 10 or 20 years is further and further away. And I go, that sounds kind of cliche, I guess, but back in 2001, you could buy a house, 1999, 2000. You could buy a house in my neck of the woods, just outside of New York City, for $200,000, $250,000. Today, those houses are $600,000, $750,000. Some places they're over $1 million. And if you turn to a young person today, that, let's say back then was making $35K a year, and now maybe they're making $75K a year, it's not enough, right? The inflation on the house was like threefold. You're not getting that threefold on your income, right? So there's a mismatch in a lot of things. And that impacts the American dream. It impacts how kids are going to college. As a matter of fact, I just had a good conversation with a PhD scholar on this very topic about how that point of diminishing returns on a college education, we've gotten to it. And that'll be on the next This Is America podcast, a short version of the weekly podcast that I do. But all that being said, the left is radical. It's un-American. It's not in line with God, country, and family values that I think this country has, from all of my life, espoused up until now. When I was a kid, it was honored and revered and respected for people to have faith in their God, whomever their God might be. And for most people, it was Jesus. Today, they look at you like you're crazy, and they're like, why do you have an imaginary friend in the sky? Right? So the tables have turned. The left is controlling the narrative in many ways. And it's really up to us to not just push back on their narrative, but to correct their narrative and give them ours and say, no, this is how it is. We don't need a radical left. We don't need a radical right either. We just need to do our thing. And I think Trump stands for a lot of that, right? People who want to be able to afford a home and buy a home and build wealth. That's a big thing. As a matter of fact, on Friday, we're going to speak with somebody who had a really good rags to riches story about that, like coming out of a trailer park and ending up owning 40, 50, 60 different properties. And that American dream still exists, but it's way harder to get to, and it's not as accessible as it was. And it's not just Harris and Biden that did that. I think it's the massive government spending and so much more, the reliance on the military-industrial complex, the reliance on being in debt, the reliance on so many things that we have that need to be tweaked, changed, and we need to migrate towards a solution. And I don't think we're doing that. Trump was doing it, and then he stopped because he was out of office, and now he's going to be back, and I hope he's back so we can continue to migrate back in that direction. where we're, like he says, making America great again, where we can be profitable again and healthy again. And we're doing things in a very commonsensical manner that is patriotic and just right. And we've gotten away from that, sadly. So those are my thoughts, Claude. Thank you for your call. I appreciate it. I'm going to pause right here. We're going to come right back for the speed round. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, familia, welcome back. Let's go to Ron, Coleman, Alabama, WGN. Is that right, WGN?
Yes, sir. That's what they say. It's from Ohio.
Love WGN. Go for it, brother.
Yes, sir. Now, the DOD Directive 5240.01, one of the items is on there that they can use lethal force to anyone that they deem using fake, what they call fake or inappropriate news. And this went in on September 27th. That's just one of the things. You should read it.
Yeah, I have it in front of me. And I don't see where it talks about the media in particular. I do know that it outlines a lot of things that are the levels of authority that are allowed in this particular directive. And I got to read a little bit more into it, but it says here, involving the use of force that is likely to result in lethal force, including death and serious bodily injury, includes all support to civilian law enforcement in situations. And this is an authorization that's been around for a long time, but as I understand it, allows it during the course of, when it's approved, right? This is not something that's always approved because the Posse Comitatus Act doesn't allow for that. So that's my hope, right? Again, you never know what these people are up to, so we'll look into that. Ron in Coleman, Alabama, thank you, my brother, for the call and for keeping us on alert. WGN in the building. Let's go to Sarah, Bedford, Indiana, WBIW.
I think Democrats' tactics smack of desperation, calling Trump Hitler. You know what? Hitler didn't like Jews, so I don't think he'd support Israel. And Obama trying to get everybody to get out and vote and talking about us and them and devices. The Democrats have been nothing but devices, calling people racist, calling out people, and regardless of who they are, traitors if they dare to espouse a conservative policy. So, desperation, hypocrisy. By the way, you got great call screeners.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate that. It's Christian Matos. Thank you for that. And Jan is in Lake Zurich, Illinois. The music means we have to go, but I'll share your thoughts listening on WLS, by the way. Christopher Columbus has gotten a raw deal from the left. You're probably right about that, and we could talk about that again more tomorrow if you're able to join us. Thank you, Jan. Hasta la próxima. Until the next time, America, take care, good night, and God bless you. I'm Rich Valdez.